Rio wakes up surrounded by clouds, standing before an angel. The angel begins by telling him that he has recently died, yet he will not be heading to the afterlife just yet. In short, Rio has become the latest victim of the infamous truck, and now it is up to Michael to send him off to a new world to begin a fresh life. According to Michael, Rio will not be given any special mission or grand objective in this new world. He is free to live as he pleases. When Rio expresses his desire for a peaceful and laid-back life, Michael has no objections. However, before sending him off, Michael gives Rio a quick overview of the world he will be reincarnated into. The world is called Fee, a magical land where about 20% of the population can use spells tied to their natural elemental affinity, and in Rio's case, his strongest affinity is with the water element. Since Rio has asked for a peaceful and laid-back life, Michael goes ahead and prepares a cozy little house for him. As a starter kit, he includes 2 tutorial books, a knife, and even places a protective barrier around the house to keep monsters at bay. As part of his beginner's kit, Michael also provides Rio with an ice house stocked with enough food to last 2 months, ensuring he will not face hunger anytime soon. Additionally, Michael includes a guidebook containing detailed information on every monster Rio might come across in the region. While this will be useful for dealing with the forest's creatures later, Rio's current focus is on testing out his newfound magical abilities. He steps outside and shouts the spell, "Water! Water! Come forth," which instantly forms a sphere of water in his hand. Magic turns out to be much simpler than he imagined, and even more surprising is that he can cast the same spell just by visualizing the water ball, saying the incantation is not actually required. Now that he has confirmed he can use magic, he heads straight to the bathhouse and begins filling the tub with water. However, he quickly notices a problem. He only knows how to produce water, and there is no way he's going to enjoy a bath that is not hot. So he goes outside and tries to build a fire to heat the water manually, but the only issue is that he has no clue how to start a fire this way. After a while, he gives up and lies on his back in defeat, but as he stares up at the sun, an idea hits him. Rio grabs a basin, fills it with water, and begins focusing on it, trying to compress it while drawing out the heat. Slowly, ice starts to form, and with a bit more effort and practice, he manages to shape the ice into a makeshift magnifying glass. Using it, he harnesses the sunlight to start a fire. With the fire finally going, he heats up his bath, which was filled with ice water. By the end of his first day, he is finally able to unwind and enjoy a proper soak. Now that he has mastered making ice, Rio realizes the opposite should also be possible. If he can remove heat to freeze water, he should be able to add heat to create warm water. This becomes his next goal, something he will need to practice in the coming days. The following morning, as Rio eats breakfast, he starts to think. With only a 2-month supply of food from Michael, he knows he will need to hunt soon to restock, but he doubts a mere knife will be enough to fend off the forest monsters. So he resolves to begin practicing his attack magic. His first attempt is launching a water ball at a tree, and it works exactly as he imagined. But a small splash of water will not do much in a real fight. He remembers a way to increase the water's force. So he gathers another ball, this time compressing the water into a focused point for more pressure. The idea is sound, but his control is not strong enough yet, and his water jet barely has more power than a toy water gun. Rio recalls something Michael mentioned before his reincarnation. Magic relies heavily on imagination, and the clearer the image in his mind, the better the result. So he just needs to keep refining it through practice. After several days of non-stop training, Rio's water jets are starting to take shape and look decent, but they are still far from powerful enough to take down a monster. Rio has also figured out how to produce hot water, allowing him to enjoy warm baths whenever he likes, though he is still working on fine-tuning the temperature as his control is not quite perfect yet. The next morning, he decides to practice his ice magic once more, this time attempting to conjure ice directly from the air itself. Though it is difficult and takes nearly 3 minutes to form, he finally succeeds in creating ice out of nothing. But unlike water, he struggles to launch it with the same ease. Combat training has not been going too well so far, and none of the spells Rio has come up with have had much impact. But still, he spends the next few hours pushing himself, practicing non-stop until he finally collapses from mana depletion. Figuring he has reached his limit for the day, he calls it quits. But the very next morning, as soon as his mana is fully restored, he jumps right back into training. This routine becomes Rio's daily life over the next few weeks, and thanks to all his hard work, he can now create ice instantly, making it a reliable offensive spell. With his new set of attack magic finally ready, and his food supplies starting to run out, Rio ventures into the forest for the first time, to begin hunting. He quickly notices a set of animal tracks and decides to follow them, which leads him to a nearby river. While exploring the area, he comes across some quartz by the riverside, something he can use to start fires by striking it against the edge of his sword. He also takes the opportunity to collect some detox herbs just in case he needs them later. But suddenly, a deep growl rumbles from behind him, and when he turns around, he finds himself face to face with a lesser boar. He freezes in place as the boar charges at him, but this is his first life or death battle, so he panics. At the last possible second, he snaps to his senses and leaps sideways, barely dodging the beast's rush. However, the boar is not finished. It turns, ready to attack again. Luckily, Rio's mind clears just in time, and as the boar charges toward him, he swiftly creates an icy path beneath its hooves, causing it to slip. Without wasting a moment, he summons several sharp ice spikes directly in the boar's path, stabbing it and killing it instantly. After butchering the boar, Rio pulls out the monster guidebook to learn more about it, and according to the book, the lesser boar is actually the weakest monster found in that forest. The guide itself is clearly intended for beginners, so most of the listed creatures are fairly simple. However, toward the end of the book, Rio notices 2 additional pages that stand out. They look like they might contain something important. One of the pages describes dragons, immensely powerful creatures capable of wiping out entire cities by themselves. The guide strongly advises fleeing immediately if he ever comes across one, as fighting it would be hopeless. But that said, outrunning a dragon is not likely either, so running into one is essentially game over. Another page mentions mysterious beings called Akuma, apparently a type of fallen angel, but the book offers very little information about them. The only advice is simple: if you ever encounter one, you are as good as dead. The following day, Rio heads out to hunt again, but while his guard is down, a giant assassin hawk swoops down from above and launches a surprise attack. The creature uses wind magic to slice through its prey with razor-sharp slashes. Rio has no choice but to run, quickly summoning ice shields to block the incoming blades of wind. He knows hawks are extremely dangerous opponents and would rather avoid a fight, but escaping is not an option, which means his only choice now is to stand his ground and fight back. He lifts his hand and launches a stream of water jets, but the hawk skillfully evades the attack and dives at him using wind magic to strike. Rio, however, reacts just in time, forming an ice shield that cuts the hawk across the eye and sends it crashing into the ground. Moments later, the hawk regains consciousness, though it has permanently lost one eye, and takes to the skies to retreat. But before disappearing, it locks eyes with Rio one last time, etching his face into memory, because now it is personal. Rio lets out a sigh of relief, grateful to have made it out alive. But still, this is far from the peaceful life he had imagined for himself. During the chase with the hawk, he ran so deep into the forest that he ended up completely lost, wandering until well into the night. As he searches for a way back home, he unexpectedly stumbles upon a glowing lake, and right in the middle of it stands a Dullahan, and from the looks of it, the creature has already noticed him. Over time, Rio hones his skills through relentless training, mastering the art of hunting and preserving food with little difficulty. His water magic grows significantly more powerful, and he can now conjure razor-sharp ice sheets and slam them down in an instant. Even his water jets reach new heights, slicing effortlessly through solid stone, and at this point, his combat prowess has become formidable. However, ice magic is not the only thing Rio has been practicing. Ever since his encounter with the Dullahan, he has ventured into the forest each night to battle it. Strangely, the monster guidebook never mentioned Dullahans. Either they are not classified as monsters or they are too advanced for a beginner's manual. But regardless, Rio remains determined to face it. He rushes in with his ice staff and starts swinging, treating the encounter more like a training session than a real battle. After all, the Dullahan completely outmatches him in both power and technique. Rio does his best to defend himself, summoning ice shields to block the incoming blows. But despite his efforts, he is quickly overwhelmed and brought down within seconds. Though the Dullahan has never spoken a single word to him, Rio cannot shake the feeling that it has taken on the role of a mentor, trying to mold him into something stronger. Suddenly, the Dullahan lifts its sword and channels water magic to lengthen the blade, and Rio is taken aback to discover that it can use water magic too. After showing him how the technique works, the Dullahan hands the sword over to Rio and calmly steps out onto the lake. One day, While Rio is out hunting, he is ambushed by the same assassin hawk from their previous encounter, though he does not remember it being black before. It must have evolved, pushing itself to grow stronger just for this moment of vengeance. The hawk swoops down at Rio, unleashing a barrage of wind slashes, and in response, Rio quickly conjures 5 layers of ice walls for protection. But now that the hawk has evolved, its wind attacks are far more powerful, strong enough to shatter all of Rio's defenses in an instant, and now a wave of anxiety begins to creep over him. Rio sprints across the field, throwing up ice walls to shield himself from incoming strikes, and when he spots an opening, he fires back with a volley of ice spikes. But the hawk easily evades them, surging forward with a sudden burst of speed. That is not the only surprise it has in store. The hawk lets out a piercing screech at a frequency that disrupts Rio's magic, causing his ice shields to vanish and leaving him nearly unprotected. But the hawk is not finished yet. It hovers menacingly in front of him, and Rio senses that a major attack is coming, though he cannot predict when. Moments later, Rio can feel electricity in the air as a bolt of lightning is shot straight at him, and an attack like that would have been fatal. But luckily, he is able to use a stick as a lightning rod and jump away to save himself. As Rio struggles to shake off the lingering shock, the hawk swoops down, aiming to deliver a fatal strike with its sharp claws. At the last moment, Rio summons his ice blade and deflects the attack. They exchange several more blows, but Rio remembers his intense training with the Dullaha, so he spots an opening in the hawk's guard and drives his sword straight through its neck. As the hawk crashes to the ground, Rio slowly walks toward it, feeling a sense of understanding. He knows what it is like. The hawk lost an eye because of him, and ever since, it has been driven by the need to prove it was stronger, pushing itself to evolve. But Rio has also been working hard to grow stronger. And in the end, despite everything, the hawk was still defeated. Afterward, Rio starts making his way home, but to his complete surprise, a dragon suddenly appears before him. Remembering what the book said about dragons being unbeatable, he is convinced this is the end for him. But to his surprise, the dragon speaks to him through telepathy. It does not seem aggressive at all. In fact, it explains that it is just passing through, searching for a black hawk that passed through the area. And the dragon simply wants to know if Rio has seen it nearby. Relieved that the dragon is not hostile, Rio quickly realizes it must be referring to the hawk he just defeated. Nervously, he apologizes and explains that the hawk attacked him first, leaving him no choice but to fight back and end its life. The dragon is shocked that a human like Rio was able to defeat a hawk, though he does not appear particularly bothered by it. What really catches his attention is the sword Rio carries, and he immediately recognizes it as the Fairy King's blade. For the Fairy King to entrust such a weapon to a mere boy, Rio must have done something to earn his favor. The dragon grows fond of Rio, and Rio, still lacking much knowledge about this world, is hoping to ask him some questions. The two end up chatting for several hours well into the evening, but their conversation is eventually interrupted as the dragon says he must return home. Rio expresses his gratitude for the dragon's answers, and the dragon thanks him in return, saying it has been a long time since he has had such an engaging conversation. They part ways with a warm farewell, but meanwhile, up in heaven, Michael is going over the documents related to Rio's reincarnation when he suddenly spots something he had previously overlooked. It turns out Rio was granted a hidden trait, something Michael has not seen since he sent a girl to that world 10,000 years ago. In Rio's case, the trait is eternal youth, and Michael finds it rather unusual. That was the first episode.
Clavitas, the strongest demon lord in the world, was living peacefully in his own territory. But just like humans who want to take control of forests, they also set out to seize his land. As a result, Clavitas became angry, and after sending all those intruders straight to meet their ancestors, he decided to wipe out the entire human race. However, during this fierce march of destruction, a mother began begging for her son's life, and because this demon happened to have a generous heart, he agreed. Now, he would have to hide his identity and raise this child among humans. Meanwhile, a group of heroes was traveling deep into the dense forests to slay that demon. All of them carried powerful weapons called Rekelia, which were special weapons far stronger than any human-made armaments. But as soon as they arrived at the location, their driver became a meal for some beasts. Seeing this, the heroes jumped into battle and began using their weapons to kill those monsters. After slaying their way through the monsters, they headed toward the beast's den. Along the way, they encountered a massive hydra, which Stefan managed to slice apart with his blades. But even with its head severed, the snake lunged to bite Stefan, and at the last moment, Alicia plunged her sword into its eye, saving him. So far, things had been going quite smoothly for them, and since all the weaker monsters had already been dealt with, they started searching for the Southern Lord in that area. At the very center, they finally saw Clevitus himself, and since it was time for his grand introduction, he decided to flex his powers a little. But even after seeing him, their thick-headed leader thought they could defeat him with their weapon. Yet,
Kafka recalls a haunting incident from his childhood when a terrifying 6.7 fortitude kaiju attacked their city, forcing a mass evacuation. He and Mina had to flee with the rest of the terrified locals, all exhausted from the relentless cycle of attacks.